Hi, everybody, and welcome again to another episode of the Risk Matrix.
The Risk Matrix from summertime. It is so great. It's hot. Got a cool breeze blowing off the Gulf. It's so good to be here.
You know, really a cool breeze because here in New Hampshire, it's not. It's just cool. Period. The water's cold. People are at the beach. I don't know, but anyways, we're here with the Risk Matrix with me, Dr. Martin, and Mr. James Junkin. Roll Tide.
Roll Tide.
And like I said, we're here and we're going to be doing another episode. And today we're going to be talking about research. Some things have gotten in our craw lately, and we'd like to help people out because there's a lot of people that are starting to do dissertation work and move through writing things. And James, just so everybody knows, is the outgoing chair of the editorial review board at ASSP's Professional Safety. And I jury for a number of different magazines within or periodicals within the industry. So we'd like to share some insights. But first, we have a word from our sponsor.
Absolutely. And I am super excited about this one because this episode of the Risk Matrix powered by Veriforce is sponsored by Veriforce's newest instructor-led course, Lockout, Tagout, Authorized and Effective Persons Training. And Dr. Martin, you and I both served as consultants on the development of that training.
We did.
In my research, what I found is that lockout, tagout violations rank as the number 6 most frequently cited standards by OSHA for 2023. So enter Veriforce's newest program, Lockout Tagout, for authorized and affected persons. It is an instructor-led approach. The course is focused on bringing workers home safe from high-hazard jobs by reducing serious injuries and fatalities among workers for failure to isolate hazardous energy. The curriculum is very comprehensive. It offers both a theoretical knowledge and practical application as required by OSHA. And to learn more about Veriforce's newest course, Lockout Tagout, for authorized and effective persons, email trainingsales@veriforce.com.
All right, James. There we go. My clock's chiming in the background, so sorry for that. Listen, some articles have come out this week in some journals, and it's not in your journal, but in the past couple weeks have come out, and you and I frequently, since you're working on your dissertation, we talk about good research versus bad research, and trying to divine the truth by thinking you know the truth to begin with, and coming up with the answer you thought you already had. So tell me a little bit. I sent you an article. We're not going to mention where it came from. You might hear me talk about it other places in more detail. But I had you read an article this week. And like, as I said, you're going through your dissertation work. What were some of your takeaways about reading these articles? Because I know you're reading hundreds of articles for your dissertation.
Indeed, I am. And look, sometimes there's a disconnect between the academic world of research and the practical application for safety professionals who are not in the world of academia. They're in the world of bringing workers home safe. Research is always important because it informs practitioners. But bad research, ineffective research, boring research doesn't help any of us. Right? It doesn't help any of us. It doesn't improve the body of knowledge. So today, hopefully, as we talk about, is not just to be super critical, but to give some key tips to people who are doing research, so that not only does the research get approved and get published, but it actually builds on the body of knowledge that's out there and helps bring workers home safe from high hazard jobs. So today, I know, Dr. Martin, you're an expert at research. I'm a novice at research, but evidently I'm doing a lot of it these days. And I find some common things in submissions that we get at Professional Safety, where writers are missing key elements to their research. And so hopefully we can talk about that today and improve the research that's happening in the occupational safety and health fields.
So I want to mention the number one thing, right? Trying to divine the truth, right? And first of all, people come into what they think is research, right? Saying, I know this to be true, okay? And I'm going to call you out here because when we started doing some work together, you have vast knowledge in the field, as do many of us and many of the people that listen to this show. And we know things to be inherently true just because of our world of practice, right?
Right.
But the aim of research is not to prove ourselves right. Okay, no, number one, it is to find an area that hasn't been looked at before. Okay, in order to do that, you have to read. Okay, and you have to read through the literature. So one of the key things that I always find is missing is that people are looking to give an opinion on
Right.
something, okay, which an opinion is, I know this to be true, and so I'm going to gather research that supports what I think or know to be true, and I'm going to present it as original. That's not research, okay? Um, and let me say this also, that if you go into looking at articles, the first thing you have to do if you're going to do any type of dissertation work or any kind of paper writing is read, and read a lot, and read in depth, right? And that means going to Google Scholar. It means going to the review journal articles. Professional safety is a good source, because I know you guys do a good job reviewing and rejecting articles that don't have good research. But you really have to.
In helping, authors, the editorial review board does a good job of assisting authors through our blind peer review process. We don't collaborate on this, it's all of our opinion, but the editorial review board does a good job working with the editorial staff of Professional Safety Journal of giving feedback to authors to get their manuscripts in order for publication, right? To kind of go through some of these things that you're talking about that really is ineffective research. And, there are opinion pieces. Just let me put it this way: just because you've cited some articles or books or noted authors doesn't mean this is a research project. And
or a research paper that you're reading. Right?
People turn in a lot of, and they put a lot of work into it, into getting some of these things out there. And I understand it's hard. Academic writing is hard for publication. But there's some common mistakes that I keep seeing in what people are calling research that's not building on the body of knowledge, right? It is a question, like you said, that the author already thinks they know the answer to, and pretty much everybody else knows the answer to too. It's not research. If I can go out there and we already have this commonly held belief, and that belief is supported by facts, is that research? Is that building on the body of knowledge? Or is it a confirmation paper that just confirms what I already came to with my biases? That's an opinion paper. That's not research. And we have too much right now happening. We went from no research being done coming out of COVID to now people are back in school. Folks got to publish for whatever reasons, if they're an academic inside of a research university, or people are doing their master's dissertations, or people are doing their doctoral work. There's a lot of publication coming out, but maybe it's coming out too quick.
It's coming out too quick, and I just want to circle back, right? Whenever you start to look at, something that you want to write new and novel, right? You're trying to look at a problem perhaps that's been looked at before, but either look at it in a new way or advance it with additional insight, right? And the only way to do that, like I said, is to read and to bring hundreds of papers to bear when you're preparing. So the first thing that I find is missing in a lot of students' work is a good literature review. Literature review. Now, when I worked with doctoral students in the past, the first thing, and now I don't have the magic, the magic beans that tell you how to do research. But I will tell you that you don't know until you know, right? And the only way to do that is to dive in and educate yourself, right? You might find that you're less educated when you come out on the other end than you were in the first place. And that's a good thing, right? Because it makes you understand where there are answers, makes you understand where there are opinions. It makes you understand where there's good research or bad research, right? Where there's repeated research in an area. Example given, COVID, right? We came out of COVID, or we were, even when we were still in COVID, everybody was writing a paper on COVID. I can't tell you how many students, how many peers thought it would be great to write about the pandemic and COVID. Well, listen, that ship is gone. When you're looking to research something, you need to be looking a year, 2 years, 3 years in the future. What is needed in the profession in order to advance what we're doing?
And I think that comes down to, if you want to write about COVID, let's write about COVID, but let's don't say the same thing that 1,000 other people have said, right? So it comes, I think the first step is defining your research question. What is it? I'm interested in COVID, but okay, COVID is a broad subject. We need to narrow it down. It's like writing about safety culture. 10 billion articles on safety culture out there, right?
Yep.
Find the niche. Find the niche. So read about
There's 10 billion articles
research
on safety culture, and 9,999,000,000 of them are opinion pieces.
Absolutely. So, develop your research question. What is your research question, and narrow that research question. As a student, that was hard for me to do. It's not easy. You've got to put some thought into it. You may take days, weeks, months to narrow that research question from down something that's extremely broad. You eventually want to publish this thing. So you got to get your research question down to something that is achievable, that's measurable, that you can do your research on, and that adds to the body of work. Here's what I'm seeing. A lot of stuff is not adding to the body of work. It's a restatement of work that's been done, solidified, researched, published, restated. I can go to the books that we use at Columbia Southern University that are assignments and read where someone else has wrote about this many, 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 many times before. So is that research? Is that research, or is that just restating what's already been out there? Is it a literature review? That's fine if we're going to call it a literature review and help people go who need knowledge about that, but it's not breaking any new ground. I guess that's what I'm getting at.
Right. So let me also restate, there's a lot of research going around research, right? We've lost in the past some research facilities. There used to be Liberty Mutual had a facility in Hopkinton where they did research. A lot of the bigger universities, although we're seeing a resurgence of people going for their doctorate now in safety. A lot of the bigger universities in the UK, in the US, just weren't putting out a lot of research. A lot of the research was coming out of Asia and India and some of the more developing countries where there really are deep safety concerns, right? Deep regulatory issues. And so you'll see in Safety Science and Journal of Safety Research that a lot of the stuff that's coming out is coming from typically that part of the world and not US and Canada and Europe, right? It's just more coming from Europe than from us in the US, right? What I see coming from the US, and this is just an opinion, right? Is we want to talk about the benefit of safety, right? Now, the benefit of safety. we know there's a benefit to safety, right? I mean, that's almost a truism, right? Otherwise we wouldn't exist. And I think one of the things we have to stop doing, right, is justifying our existence and our presence and our knowledge, and taking the pieces of knowledge that we do have and creating better mousetraps. And by that, I mean, I have a colleague that did some groundbreaking research on slips, trips, and falls, namely frictions of surfaces, right? And how it's called tributism, right? How people slip, right? Very good research in a needed area, because slip, trips, and falls are very,
But that's
very
different than
common.
doing research and saying slip, trips, and falls are a problem. We know
Right.
trips, and falls are a problem. I don't need a survey of 1,000 safety professionals to tell me that slip, trips, and falls are a problem. We know slip, trips, and falls are a problem. All right,
Right.
now we've got that settled. Why are they a problem? How do we go about fixing this problem? What are the contributing factors to this problem? That's what I'm talking about, building on the body of
And how
knowledge.
do we narrow it so that we can get our hands around the problem or the research question that we have? So for example, if you're looking at slip, strips, and falls, and you narrow it to surfaces, you narrow it to types of surfaces. Maybe you're looking at, the restaurant industry, right? Maybe you're looking at a specific restaurant industry, new construction, and materials that are being used in new construction, and you're picking 5 of those surfaces. Maybe you're just even picking 1, 2, or 3 of those surfaces, right? The most common, right? But this is the process of narrowing things down, and it's a problem. What's not a problem is that we need safety, right? We just
Right.
need better safety. And that's where we should be putting our efforts for research and grant monies and things of that nature. So I'll get off
there's
that
a lot of
soapbox.
students, particularly those at Columbia Southern University. You're a professor there. You teach there. I'm a student and a graduate of
Go
that
Knights.
university. Go Knights! Go Knights! Seeing a lot of Knights moving up into senior positions in different safety societies, and also in senior positions throughout the United States on different contractor companies and oil and gas companies and hiring companies that I do business with. So, Columbia Southern's doing a great job of graduating effective safety professionals, and hats off to them. They're not the only university that does that, but that's the one I'm enrolled in. So that's the one I'm talking about, right? But
Right.
they're not the only ones. So there are a lot of students that listen to this program that are involved in not only their day job, bringing workers home safe, but in the academic side of adding to their body of knowledge, degrees, certifications, things of that nature. So I think they get some benefit out of this discussion. But even if you're not a student, you may be doing research on a problem within your organization, right? It's still, these lessons still apply. If I've got a slip, trips, and falls problem within my organization, I don't need to research are slips, trips, and falls a problem. I already know they're a problem. Why are they a problem? So when you go and you look at research, Google Scholar is a place a lot of people go to that don't have access to libraries like Columbia Southern has, an electronic database of millions of articles you can choose from. Google Scholar is a good place. But buyer beware, right? Peer-reviewed, respected academic sources. You got to be able to delineate between opinion pieces and peer-reviewed academic sources. There are a lot of periodicals out there that say safety on them, but they have no peer-reviewed process. Even in some, like I'm a huge fan of Professional Safety Journal. I sit as chair on that board. Not every article in there has been peer-reviewed. I published a lot of non-peer-reviewed articles that I think are really good. Me and my mom think they're pretty good in Professional Safety Journal, right? But some of those articles are not peer-reviewed. Be careful about your source and make sure that you've got strong academic sources for reference inside of your publication. Right?
Okay, let's get off that horse, right? So we know we need to do a literature review. That's the biggest thing, because you need to get in there and you need to have a research question that really is going to make a difference.
Well, let's talk about literature review a little bit longer. Okay.
All right.
Because I see literature reviews missing in a lot of research, or very narrowed literature review. For those that listen to this podcast that are about to go to sleep, tell them what a literature review is.
A literature review is the bane of James' existence right now. It's where you get your research kind of area, right? And you kind of start narrowing down your question. And you narrow down your question by reading articles and researching articles in the main branch of what you're looking at. So for example, if you're looking at slips, trips, and falls, you may start your literature review with papers on slips, trips, and falls, the history of them. You may look at slips, trips, and falls in the restaurant industry. You may look at slips, trips, and falls and new construction. You may look at new construction and materials that are used for floors, right? But
Right.
a literature review is basically, and this is how I explain it to students, is you have a main branch of your tree. But in order to shore up the main branch of the tree, right, you have to be looking at the side branches of everything that comes into and out of that main branch of the tree, right?
Right.
You must prune some of those branches, right? Because otherwise you have this.
I think that's
Okay?
the problem when you start researching is your search terms are too broad. You're
Right.
looking at the roots, the trunk, the limbs, the
The
leaves,
little tiny limbs, the
the pollen
leaves.
that comes off of it. If it's
Yep.
an acorn tree, big oak tree that's got acorns, we're down there looking at the acorns. You got to keep your search terms specific and narrow.
So let me give you a visual for people who do look for the podcast. And I don't know how to describe this if people listen on Spotify, but you basically have a main trunk that you're looking at. And that main trunk turns into branches as you go along, and you prune those branches. And when it comes back to the end of your literature review, you have your research question and it's narrowed because you pruned all those branches down and you have them wrapped up into something that's manageable. And you've pushed aside the papers that don't help you, right, define the research question or the research problem, or show you where the research has been done before so that you're not repeating somebody else's work. So you're basically going out into the branches and coming back in. But don't forget to dive deep.
But dive in the pool that you need to be in, and Dr. Evans, Dr. Crystal Evans, I'm gonna give her a shout out. She said something as I was beginning to get organized for my dissertation about using a mind map to
Absolutely.
help you get organized. And I was like, little light bulb started going off, right? Because, I've kind of got an ADD personality, and I'll start chasing squirrels, rabbits, dogs, because I find it's something I like and it's interesting. And you can get off track real quick in your research if you don't get organized and stay focused. So the idea of having a mind map helps you narrow things down, choose what's important for your research, keeps you on track. It also allows you to copy down things like key quotes that you want to use that give you a lot of inspiration. So as I'm doing it, I got a million things going on over here at Mariner Gulf, right? I have to, if I catch something, if I don't get it written down, it's in, it's out, and I lose. Hey, I was reading something, I was reviewing something, and bam, I really like that. That could help me in my research. Have a place to go to be able to put that stuff so you can come back to it later.
So I'll give you a few tips here. There are some mind map programs that you can get online. You can use a whiteboard. You can use a piece of paper on your desk. Dr. Paselk and I work together on his dissertation that he's on our strategic advisory board. And I know he had a lot of drawings. It's one of the things that helped us narrow down what he was doing, and to draw it out. I mean, don't be afraid to draw the tree and the branches and or draw the core issue and draw the offshoots from the core issue and truncate the things that you don't need, the subjects that you don't need, and definitely have a place to write it down.
Well, let's talk about this, because a lot of research is based on surveys of other people, right?
Okay.
What other people's opinions are. So let's talk about validated research, validated surveys, your research model. And then we're going to get into a pet peeve of James's about research and models, right? Yep. But let's talk about what it should look like. And then I'm going to tell you what a lot of stuff I've seen looks like.
Yeah. Well, tell us the bad.
All right.
And then we'll tell you what
papers that drive me nuts. 18-page research paper, right? 17 pages about the model, a half a paragraph about the conclusion and the results. I know you need to validate your research methodology, but really, as a practitioner, I'm going to assume your research is valid, right? Do I need to have 17 and a half pages about how the research was done? Because if the validity of the research and the conclusion of the research only is a paragraph, was it really that big a problem to begin with? You know what I'm saying?
Yeah,
So,
I know what you're saying, and I'm gonna add something. How about 18 pages that starts with Hammurabi's code and brings us through the reign of Caesar, and then tells us what happened in the 1890s and the 1900s and the OSHA Act of 1970. And by the time we get to page 17, then we talk a little bit about maybe some relevant articles or some opinions, and we wrap it up, and we call that a literature review.
And we say a survey of 100 safety professionals revealed A, B, C, right? And the conclusions of 100 safety professionals of common knowledge, and I could have got that by Googling it or just talking to a peer, right? That's not research. That's not research. Right. That's an opinion piece, and you may have really good opinions, but your research has to be statistically valid. That has to be inside your research paper, but it should not take up all of the paper. We need to get some meat in there as to why this is important, because I don't know about you, Dr. Martin. I know you're super busy too, but James going to skip all that about the research model, and I want to get to the meat. Like I want to get to the back. I want to see what was the problem we solved. What did we find? So when I get to it, and you've got 5 bullet points, and it's just common knowledge stuff like, hey, more experienced safety professionals that have certifications can lead to safer workplaces. Really.
And you know what? That it still doesn't solve a problem. That doesn't solve a problem, right? Something like that is A, you could Google it. B, it's kind of just an inherent.
Some of it's just common
truism.
sense.
It's common sense, right?
It's like,
what I want to know is what is something in the crane industry that we need to really dive deep into that will stop some SIFs in a certain area, right? Work efforts. I want to know what are the up and coming topics. How deep did you dive into what people are researching? I'm telling you right now, if you look at the body of research that's coming out right now, there's not a whole lot on anything, right?
I wish somebody had researched, and I wish I had time to research it, and I'm sure somebody has researched and I hadn't run across it, is leading indicators. Everybody tells you, track your leading indicators. Okay, I'm tracking them. I'm tracking these leading indicators. But
And everybody has a different set of leading indicators
okay,
that they want you to
there's
track.
no common set of leading indicators. We're tracking number of safety meetings, number of job site inspections, number of near miss reports, number of all these things. Everybody's tracking it. But what does that data mean? And how do I quantify that data in a specific industry for a specific, group of contractors, if you will, in a specific NASIC code? What does it mean here's an example. All right. We do safety meetings every month. Well, some people do them every quarter. Does the fact that we do safety meetings every quarter translate into more injuries? And can you quantify that? I know companies that don't do any safety meetings. Go to residential construction. Those cats aren't doing any kind of safety meetings, but they hadn't had any injuries. So, it's back to Conklin's question: does the absence of injuries equal the presence of safety? So there are a lot of things that we could be doing a lot of research on, deep research, things to get us the engines going. But what I'm seeing from my studies, right, is that the research that's coming out, it's a lot of regurgitation of the same things that we already know. It's not building on the body of knowledge. So, when you get to your research question, you got to narrow that down. You got to do your literature review. You need to get an outline or mind map to organize your information. Then you're prepared to start writing. Sometimes I think people want to skip, and I'm the world's worst about this. I want to skip all of that and get to the writing part. But the writing is the easy part. It's all this other stuff on the front end that's laborious.
Right. And if you don't do a good job, I don't care what opinion surveys you put out, what questions you ask, and what statistics you shift around and validate and try to correlate and tell me that whatever is true, whatever you put in there. If you haven't done a really good job of telling me why this matters, then I'm not even going to read the rest of the paper.
I think that's where good editing comes in, right?
A good mentor.
And I would suggest getting someone other than you yourself to edit, right? Because I can be long-winded. You've graded some of my stuff in the past. Assignment is write 3 to 4 pages, and I turn in 36 with 107 citations, right? Way overboard for this type of project. So editing is important. Editing, get a good editor, get a good statistician that can help you.
Editing your thoughts and editing your paper, the words you put to paper, right? Because we can get carried away and really deep into a subject and forget the forest for the trees.
There needs to be a logical flow to your paper. I like to say at the beginning, you need a hook. You need to get me interested in why I want to finish reading this 26 pages of stuff that you put together and put a lot of time and effort and all in, right? But you got to hook me. You got to hook me. So you got to have a hook, but you also got to make sure that your main points are clear and that there's a logical flow to the paper, right? You want to present it in an interesting way, but to do so in a manner that I can easily understand and good transitions from one topic to the next. You want the reader to have a clear understanding of your topic and that your paper comprehensively answers your research question. What I find is, and this is all the time, we got a great question. We got a wonderful abstract. But then I read the paper and I'm like, where's all the stuff you promised me? That's back to what I'm saying. You've got all this stuff that's great in the abstract. You've got a really good hook going in. Then you've got 15 pages of your research model in a paragraph, and I'm left wanting all this stuff you promised me that's not in here. That got
All
me
the
to
stuff
read
you
this
promised
article to
me,
begin with.
or you're left with, wow, I could have Googled that, or duh. So let's give a shout out, because there are not, I mean, I just want to say that there are some people that are doing good research in the US and in the UK, and one of them is the CSRA out of Colorado University, and
Outstanding.
led by Dr. Hollowell. Fred Sherratt is part of that group, and they're doing some really good, interesting articles, interesting research, and putting out some great PhD quality work, right? So I'm not saying we're not doing it, right? And you know, they are looking at leading indicators. They are looking at TIR and the fallacy
They published a lot of stuff in professional safety that's spurred a lot of conversation. Their article on the definition of serious in CIFs. We've used that article at Veriforce to challenge and do panel discussions at the OSHA Oil and Gas Conference, at the Veriforce Select Client Series, and later this summer we're going to do it down at the National Safety Council again. And it always sparks tremendous interest and debate and discussion. And that all is sourced back to that article that was published in Professional Safety based on their research of CIFs. And they've got, you know, models coming out. They have another article about predictive models for PCIFs. You know, what does that mean? And so it's great discussion, great debate, but their research is always solid, interesting, practical, that gives me something as a practitioner I can apply, get away from the theoretical and get into, hey, how does this help me bring workers home safe? How does this help me determine whether or not I have a good safety program? You know, we haven't gotten anybody hurt, but that doesn't mean I have a good safety program.
And
That
how
may
can I
just
make it
mean we're
better?
lucky.
It may mean you're lucky. That's right. And you know, so I think we've given a lot of tips so far. Was there anything else you wanted to add to this, James? I know
I'll
there's a
add
lot of
this.
pet peeves.
Find something you're passionate about. Okay.
And then be open.
And work from there to narrow down your research project. Because if you're passionate about it, you'll put the work, the energy, the hours necessary in to produce something good that builds on the body of work that's out there that helps to bring workers home safe. That's our ultimate goal. We want to improve in safety. So, you know, don't just do research for research's sake. Find something that fires you up, that you think about when you lay down at night, ready to go to bed. This burning question that you have, right, in your
Talk to your
brain.
colleagues about it. I
Talk to
mean,
your
if
colleagues
you do
about
a
it.
lot of networking, you should know that those burning questions that you have are the same burning questions that other safety professionals have, right?
Absolutely.
I exist. Safety professionals are going to exist. It is a profession. We are here. We are in companies. We do make a difference. That's a given. What I want to know is how research to practice should be. How am I making a difference? And you can only do that if you're solving new problems.
And last, I'd say this: don't be afraid to get started. I get a lot of people that say, man, I want to write an article and get published. But there's a big difference between wanting to and doing it. Get started. Go out there. Don't be afraid of constructive criticism. Submit it over at Professional Safety Journal, to other journals. I just happen to be on the editorial review board in the chair of it, and been there 3 years and read hundreds of submissions. We're there to help you. Our happiest goal is when we've given feedback to an author or authors, and then later on, I see it's a cover story for a a professional safety journal monthly publication. So
Right.
I love to see people get published. We want to help people get published. So don't be afraid of constructive feedback. Don't be afraid to reach out to your peers and get them to look at it, to have discussions, because that publication may be something that someone else reads that helps them bring workers home safe from high hazard jobs.
Right on. Right on. I mean, we could talk about research forever. You know, I know sometimes this gets a little pet peevey, but you know, I think the gist is that we want people to really think about what are the issues, what are the problems, what's coming down the pipe, what keeps you awake at night, what keeps your colleagues awake at night, what binds you together to bring workers home safe from high hazard jobs, but from also stopping serious injuries and fatalities and breaking that cycle.
And
So
as we close it out, research doesn't just have to happen in that world of academia.
that's
Research
correct.
could be a glaring problem within your organization that you're trying to solve. So whether you're going for publication or you're going for trying to fix some problem within your organization, get out there, read, increase your body of knowledge, look at good peer-reviewed academic sources, make sure your research is statistically valid, and apply, test, do whatever you got to do in order to try to address that question that keeps you up at night.
So what's the risk here? What's the risk? The risk is the risk of opinion-based articles. The risk here that we're talking about today is the risk of bad research. The risk is not really advancing the profession or the body of knowledge. And so we need to take a look at our research, what we're looking at, how we're doing it, and get more people involved. You're right. You don't have to just be in academia. You can write something, start. So thanks again. Yeah,
Till
thanks
next
again.
time, thank you all who tune in and listen to our podcast. Met a lot of listeners down at our live event in New Orleans. It was great to interact with folks that listen to our podcast. Hey, we're over there on the Veriforce YouTube channel. New episodes drop every Tuesday around noontime, Central Standard Time. What do they need to do, Dr. Martin?
They need to hit that like button, smash that subscribe button, interact with us, hit us up on LinkedIn, go to the YouTube channel at Veriforce and Spotify, find us, find your colleagues, get out there, and let's really take a good look at what risk is in our workplace and mitigating it. So thanks again for joining us in the risk matrix. James, you want to take us out?
Until next time, y'all keep bringing those workers home safe from high hazard jobs.
Roll Tide.
Out.